Hello, Amelia and Aaron. Thank you for the video response, or sorry, the video. And yeah, I really like the way in which it was made, just kind of a off-the-cuff conversation brain dump. I find I do a lot better in that setting. When I'm kind of just ranting about things that I think, I tend to spiral out of control and get off topic and talk in a way that's very unrelatable to other people. So yeah, I love the idea of having a conversation with someone. So thank you very much. Yeah, I don't actually have anyone in my life right now who is really down for this kind of thing, for just having a conversation on camera, either because they don't necessarily care about political philosophy or philosophy in general, gender issues. They don't necessarily want to be on camera. And these are conversations that can be very controversial and can draw a lot of negative behavior, negativity. So I can totally relate to that. But yeah, I'm just gonna do a off the cuff. I actually already recorded this video and it was like 25 minutes long and didn't have any sound because I didn't push the right buttons. So but yeah, I'm gonna talk again about all these things. I've practiced now. I have it all kind of like laid out. Basically, I agree that it's so unfortunate that the conversation right now is totally owned by the extreme people on both sides. There's the extreme people on the right who think that gender is this thing that needs to exist the way it has always existed, and that anything other than that is immoral or wrong or deviant, whatever. And that's insane. And then the people on the other side that believe that gender is just a product of cultural conditioning. And like obviously that isn't the case either. At least I should say, it makes no sense to not believe in the biological component because like there's a lot of evidence that it probably exists, that men and women behave differently because of their actual inherent being, not because of how they're conditioned. It's good to be open about it, just to give yourself the opportunity to accept women as basically what they really are. And that touches on a big part of this whole video that you made, and I really agree with your video. That basically, yeah, when you don't get into psychology and learning about like actual female sexuality, you end up resenting it. And I was totally raised, like, my mom didn't really call herself a feminist, but she totally had this ideology, and I had no idea what female sexuality was. I thought it was just human sexuality. And so whenever actual female sexuality reared its ugly head, I hated it. I hated things like hypergamy and women's desire to be with strong, confident men, because I was, emotionally vulnerable and not attractive to most women. Especially women I liked, I became this incredibly unattractive person. And I know this now because of my understanding of, in general, female sexuality. And this is all said with the caveat that there is huge variation in gray areas, and we're just describing the general sexual dimorphism as it exists, with no moral statements about it should be in this way. Yeah, there's such a fine line because you have to prepare people. You have to tell them the truth. And you have to tell men that, yeah, you will probably be not wanted sexually in general and to some degree shamed for these behaviors. But that doesn't mean it's morally wrong. And there is possibly some benefit to moving towards a more egalitarian dynamic and kind of shedding some of these traditional dynamics. I mean, especially because like the actual traditional dynamic that is, was practiced many centuries ago, like not the watered down, mostly egalitarian version we have today, but that was brutal and incredibly harsh on both men and women. Like, I don't want that. And I totally agree with many of the modern egalitarian anti-feminists like Warren Farrell and Karen Strawn who say that like we just need to describe why it was and how it is. But we need to be totally open to the idea of encouraging egalitarian tendencies towards viewing people more as equals when it comes to money or power or whatever else. But yeah, it's absolutely true that women have those tendencies, and if we don't accept them, then, well, we're not going to accept women, and we're going to be closet misogynists who hate ourselves for our own misogyny, because we can't even, like, when you're in that situation, and I was totally in this situation, you hate women, but you don't have any philosophical out because you've denied an aspect of reality, that is female sexuality. And so you're trapped in this hatred of women that you want no part of, and so you end up hating yourself as an extension to that, and it's just a goddamn mess. So, like, there's a fine line between being optimistic when you raise your kids and just kind of deluding yourself and them about reality. And it's so important, I think, to tell the truth. And that is one area in which I do, have personal experience. It's interesting how when people approach their 30s, gender totally changes. It was something that was much more, especially for our generation, being raised in the culture that we are. We, yeah, things end up changing quite a bit at that point. And I think once again, we shouldn't act like that is an ethical imperative, like people should do that, settle down and have kids. They should just do what makes them happy, and we should be open about the fact that that's what makes many women happy. Hmm. Emilia, I like what you said about online dating, how you, in your profile, you just say you want to be a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, I think that's great. I actually, I met my girlfriend on Tinder, actually, of all places. And when we met, we like talked in text back and forth for like a week and a bit, and like day and night, and we got to know each other very well with very candid conversations. And I remember one of the first things she said was, yeah, she wants to have kids in the next like 5 years probably. And like, I know I want to have kids at some point. I don't know if I want to have them tomorrow, but I know I don't want to have them tomorrow. But yeah, like, that struck me as like, that's so awesome that you're just putting yourself out there like that. And yeah, I guess that kind of just related to what you were saying, because it reminded me of it. Oh, and I also really like what you said about when you interacted with Aaron's daughter and you said, that's mine because I paid for it. Because I think so often when parents are parenting their children, they try to create these artificial authority lines and reinforce them for their own sake. Like, oftentimes when I would ask my dad, why is it this way? Or why do I need to do this? He'd be like, well, because I'm your father, or because it's blah, blah, blah. And it just felt like a very empty, not like unethical, but like non-ethical thing to say. So it's just like, kids do crave some sort of rules and structure, even though they are so without rules, as you say. And I love the idea of, being like, well, this is mine because I paid for it. This is how you can acquire exclusive access. This is one way to do that. And it's wrong to take things. And no, it's good. I'm just going to rant about a lot of things in this video. So like yours, this video is kind of for people who just like brain dumps. Yeah. Speaking of male traits and male versus female characteristics, I like how Aaron put it that, I do agree that I think, Aaron, you embody a lot of the positive, or how I see it, male traits as they generally exist. And that's not to say, people should, like, people with penises should act this way or anything. But I do agree that that tends to be a little bit more like secure and confident and consistent, and in some ways cold because of that strength and that consistency. You have a certain coldness about you when you have that more, I guess we could call it masculine nature, versus women who, in general, traditionally tend to be a little bit more, I guess, whimsical in their thinking, or not so based in logic, but more emotional intuition, which can be very useful, obviously. And once again, not to say that women should be that way or are always that way, blah, blah, blah. But I do agree, Aaron, that you do embody many of the positive male characteristics while still being, in many ways, what some people might think of as feminine, like having certain gender neutral characteristics when you were younger, or having a high voice. You don't even have a high voice. You have like a normal voice for a human. Let's put it that way. I can also really relate to you wanting to be gay as a kid or as a young man. I totally had that as well. I remember in high school telling someone that and then being like, what? um, yeah, just basically because I was completely delusional about female sexuality. And so I was so incredibly unlucky. Even though I was like an actual nice guy. Um, like I was sincerely nice to women, but at the same time, I didn't respect their actual sexuality or what they required from me. So I wasn't really nice to them. I was nice to my fantasy of them. Um, yeah, and I was just incredibly unsuccessful. So I just, yeah, and I couldn't relate to them. I couldn't connect to them. So yeah, I absolutely totally wished I was gay at one point. And I remember like lots of gay guys were like into me because yeah, have a slightly, yeah, gay guys like me. And yeah, I can relate. I can relate to lots of things you're saying. Yeah, I actually found myself like I was much more gender neutral when I was younger in terms of my attitude and how I conducted myself, how I approached things, and I definitely find I'm becoming more masculine as I grow older, especially these last few years, in the way that I described masculinity a few moments ago. And yeah, I definitely don't think that that's because of like cultural pressure. It might be because in part I've noticed that makes me more successful with women. I'm sure that is in part because of it. But yeah, part of me just does enjoy embodying masculine tendencies. And it is very unfortunate that modern liberal culture tends to demonize the appreciation of somewhat traditional gender roles and, filling them in any number of ways. Because it can be fun. Like especially I find like during sex to fill a certain role. Um, that doesn't necessarily reflect how exactly you feel about somebody. And I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about lots of people who enjoy a certain dynamic that doesn't necessarily exactly represent the dynamic they have in real life with their partner. And like I see nothing wrong with like playing into those biological roles, that psychological history that's like, so wired in. Because it was only very recently that we kind of changed from a very brutal, dark, barbaric past. And yeah, I really like that about Warren Farrell's perspective is that he talks about how, and I mean lots of people talk about this, how this kind of dynamic was very useful in a very high risk, violent environment, and yeah, it should be recognized as that, and that's why we have these imprints on our brain and these tendencies, and they can be explored and exploited for our own benefit and happiness, but I think they should be understood as a response to much more violent times and yeah, definitely not necessary as many you know traditionalists believe. And I think you guys totally agree with me on that. So moving on. Yeah, I like your point, Amelia, about how many men basically don't act in a way that allows women to respect them. And it's like not a choice. Like respect isn't a choice. Like affection, attraction aren't choices. Like they're a response to something in someone else, either a behavior or a look or something. And I think it's yeah so unfortunate. I'm probably repeating myself, but how we refuse to teach men that explicitly this is how women generally are, and that needs to be accommodated by your psychology, or you're gonna have some bad times. Yeah, something I might disagree with you guys on. I'm not sure if you actually said that this is the way that it should be or something like that, but I don't necessarily agree with the idea that if a girl is easy or she has sex with someone relatively soon, that decreases her value, or at least the value of her sexuality. Like I can totally understand why people see this. Like if someone offers you an incredible gift of some kind, and they just met you and they don't even know you, then it's kind of like, well, why are you just giving it to me? Isn't it like special or rare or like incredible? Like I can understand that, but on an emotional level, like I slept with my girlfriend the first night I met her in real life after having like quite a bit of text conversation, and I didn't lose any respect for her. And I think maybe the qualifying line to draw is that I was very confident that she knew who I was sincerely and respected me and actually wanted me. I wasn't some part of some cheap fantasy of hers or anything like that. And I think maybe that's maybe a better line to draw is that, yeah, if at least for me, because I see nothing wrong with like having sex with someone immediately. In fact, you can go too far the other direction as well by, I think, basically stringing men along, and in doing that, you can create this artificial attraction. Like if you want to have sex with someone and you can't, that can have the effect of making you want them more, and in an artificial sense, more. And all of a sudden, men are, promising the world, they're obsessed with you, and they have all this attraction built up that's not really based on who you are. And then you have sex with them, and this kind of attraction bubble bursts, like an economic bubble, and you're thrown into depression, recession, and that's not fun. All of a sudden, this person's like, oh, wow, you're not the person I thought you were. And, you have sex, and then the relationship kind of changes and goes downhill. And I'm not saying that's what you guys are promoting at all. I don't necessarily know what you believe, but I do find that interesting that that's something that I might actually disagree with you on. I don't know. And I do kind of enjoy disagreeing with people whom I respect and am able to have a cordial dispute. But I'm sure I agree with you that regardless of what you personally feel, it's not an ethical or moral thing like to sleep with someone right away. All right. Yeah, when it comes to the alt-right, I'm personally not a fan. From what I can tell, they are very reactionary and simplistic in their thinking. They're all about, close the borders and put women back in the kitchen and into the traditional roles. And while I agree that women can go back into the kitchen and not be shamed for it, I don't think we should put them back in the kitchen by shaming them and acting like that's a moral imperative. And that seems to be a consistent theme of what I've seen. And also believing in the whole like race realism stuff, which I'm not really a fan of. But yeah, I do agree that it is great that now there's a established extreme on this side. So now we're basically moderates. We can talk about things in a way that is seen as moderate because there is crazy people established all around us, and probably much more so, unfortunately. One interesting thing that I think we might disagree on is polyamory. And I know once again that you're not making any ethical statements about what people should do. You're more or less just describing the way things generally are and probably your own emotional response to things. But yeah, I will say that for like 5 years now, I have identified in an emotional sense as polyamorous. And yeah, it just makes complete sense to me. And I think the big reason is that I feel very secure in the relationships I've been in. I haven't been in many secure relationships in that time, but especially in this last one, like I really love my girlfriend, obviously. And we tell each other everything and communicate very well together. And at this point, we know if someone's holding something back and not quite being honest. And so we have this incredible trust. And I think because of that, we're able to, talk about things that would normally make someone feel very insecure. And I think that's the source of jealousy in relationships is because people will, view your partner's attraction as a threat. You'll think, oh, well, there's something in that person that I don't have, and it's going to draw this person away. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. Like, I know myself, the idea of being with one person for the rest of my life is kind of a little bit scary. It kind of feels like you're limiting yourself. It's pretty scary. I don't want that. And I'm comfortable having my partner, pursue experiences outside of our relationship as well, if she's comfortable and honest with me. So, yeah, that's basically how I see it. I wouldn't say I'm jealous, but I am afraid of loss in a sense, in that if I did feel that my partner was, actually becoming distant and spending way more time with that person, and, I felt like I was going to lose this beautiful, incredible person in my life, that would be very, tragic to me because I value this person and the relationship we have together. So that's one thing, but I wouldn't call that jealousy because it's just, it's a fear of loss. I wouldn't be, yeah, I guess I would be jealous of what that person had as soon as I lost her. But if, yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe. I've never even experienced this. This is the thing, is that I've been in a monogamous relationship for 2 years. Um, and while we're very open about things and we wouldn't stop each other from exploring these kinds of things, we have been monogamous. So I'm talking from a place of inexperience, is what I'm saying. But this is most definitely my most sincere emotional response to this. So I do find it interesting that, yeah, people tend to shame it, I think. Well, I do know they do. And it's unfortunate because, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that my relationship with my girlfriend is any less meaningful. Like, I love her so much and I value our sex life and everything. Like, it's not that our relationship is lacking. It's just that, like, I'm not attracted to just one person. I have attraction to many people. And I feel like it would bring more to my life in terms of the pursuit of happiness if I can do that and pursue that attraction to other people in a way that doesn't harm this person that I love so much. And yeah, I don't know, it makes total sense to me. So I mean, and I'm not trying to like make the case and change your guys' mind if you do disagree with me, but yeah, that is where I'm coming from. Um, yeah, when it comes to making more money than women, yeah, I'm gonna keep coming back to the idea that I think we should prepare men for the reality, like humans, women, for the reality that there are these tendencies, whether or not they're biological and inherent or just culturally imprinted. They're very established in our society. Like apparently this is a pretty common thing. Like they've done certain studies on it where when men and women marry and the women make more than the man, or the man is a stay-at-home dad or something like that, oftentimes the women lose attraction to the man. And like even if they claim they won't beforehand, they unfortunately, because of some aspect of the situation as it is right now, that's happening. And we need to be able to talk about this without either shaming women or acting like this is a biological imperative that men make more money. It's such a fine line that has to be drawn. Also, I agree, whiskey is the shit. Um, yeah, I was also raised, in a feminist culture where, yeah, I totally believed women to be a certain thing, and yeah, that led me to be very unhappy. So I can totally relate to that, in terms of I viewed them as something they weren't, and so I resented the real version of them. It is so interesting as well how both misogynists and misandrists end up with the most awful kind of people, the kind of people they believe exist, because they, yeah, as you say, believe that's out there, and then yeah, they either don't see anything better than that, or they believe it's a trick or a game or an act, and so they just don't acknowledge it and they don't even see it, and they end up and relate to and connect with just these, yeah, very negative and angry people. And yeah, yeah, I think that would be the big takeaway from, I guess, my contribution to this exchange, is that I think we need to have a more vocal conversation in the middle where we talk about things that are like the slightly dysfunctional way that things exist right now, but we don't make moral judgments about them. We don't say that things should be this way. And I really respect that. Like, I think I agree with you guys on everything, like other than what I would say are our emotional responses to things like polyamory or like sleeping with someone on the first date. But that's like irrelevant. Like, it's like an aesthetic judgment. Like, and I think this conversation, like this kind of exchange, is what I really want to have, because I think my problem in the past is I would talk to people that were so extreme and in many ways, from my perspective, kind of contemptible. And so I end up like speaking to them in a way that like it's clear that I resent them, disrespect them, and then I end up resenting and disrespecting my audience. Like not actually, but that that message of resentment is sent to everyone. So like if I want to make videos, I want to make videos that are more positive and nice, like nice, respectful videos. And like I don't mind talking about things that are very controversial, but I want to talk to someone who I respect. And that doesn't mean someone who agrees with me, but it does mean someone who, like you guys, are very able to, engage with people in a very respectful fashion. So yeah, I was thinking, maybe you wouldn't mind doing another video like this, where you have a conversation with Aaron, maybe, or maybe just Aaron or just Amelia. I don't really care. But like maybe we could talk about money. Like I find money is so fascinating, and yeah, like I'll give my brief thoughts on it. Like it's so absurd that people view money as the root of all evil. Like it's just a technology. It's something that makes humans able to interact and exchange, associate more efficiently, more fluidly. Like it's like language in that way. Language allows people to interact more efficiently. And so saying money is the root of all evil is like saying language is the root of all evil, because it allows people to communicate and learn their differences and fight and go to war and die. And it's just insane. Money just allows people to exchange more efficiently. I'm repeating myself. Another thing that I think is just brilliant, and I'm not sure if Ayn Rand was the first person to say this in Atlas Shrugged, but basically money is like a measure of someone's utilitarian worth to society. That is, in a just society, in a society with no, statism and institutionalized coercive taxation and all that crap, then people making money is something they produce because they're actually serving people in a voluntary exchange sort of way. Now, obviously people value very weird things sometimes, and like maybe you're making very obscure porn that just a few millionaires value. That will make you rich, but you're not necessarily benefiting society in some objective way, but you're serving human values. That's what I mean. But in general, this is a good thing. Like like if we want a representative government that represents our values, then, well, a system of money and voluntary exchange is that in its purest sense. That's why the idea of representative government is so insane, but that's a whole other video. But yeah, money is great. Money is useful. Money measures your utilitarian worth, what you offer society in general in terms of what values they have. And yeah, very odd that people hate it so much. Yeah. Like obviously right now, because there's so much taxation and corruption and theft, some people get rich off of, or fraud. Some people get rich off of nefarious means, and their wealth is not a measure of how much they've helped people. It's a measure of how much they've exploited people and hurt people. But yeah, like in general, in a just society with no institutionalized criminality, it's basically a measure of your worth to society in general. Like in much the same way that a gold medal in the Olympics is a measure of how fast you are or how good you are at that event. It doesn't mean you're absolutely the best. I mean, people take drugs, people make mistakes, people have luck, or others get injured. So there's some variation, but in general, it's a measure of it. And in the same way, yeah, money measures moral worth in a utilitarian sense. So, and I'm not saying I'm a utilitarian philosophically in a purist sense, but it's very odd that people who argue from a utilitarian perspective and argue for representative government, that they tend to not respect money as much as they should. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. If you don't, I don't care. You can talk about anything. You can talk about any of the things that you know that we're both interested in. Yeah. The state, culture, language, ethics of any kind. Basically, yeah, I'd love to make videos where I interact with you guys. You guys are the shit. Yeah. Peace.